I remember the sound of iron being sharpened in the dark, not the roar of battle. No screams of dying men, just the slow patient rhythm of stone against steel, back and forth. Back and forth, that sound built warriors long before the enemy reached our gates. Most men today are not defeated by spears, they are defeated by boredom, the moment the work becomes dull. They abandon their post, they drop their shield and the cold IT waiting for motivation. But iron does not become deadly in a single strike, it is polished by repetition. Hundreds of strokes, thousands, each one invisible, each one forgettable, yet together they forge a blade that can split armor. I watched mighty men fall at the gates of Troy, not because they were weak, but because they grew tired of the grind before the war truly began. Their bodies stood strong, but their discipline had already rotted. Listen carefully. The distance between a hero and a corpse is smaller than you think. One repeats the boring work every day, the other waits for a moment of glory, and by the time glory arrives, his blade is still dull. When Troy still stood beneath the burning sun, our warriors trained in silence. No crowds, no cheering, no songs of victory, only the dull rhythm of drills echoing against the stone walls. Strike, step, shield, breathe, again and again and again. The young soldiers hated those mornings. Their arms burned, their legs trembled. They dreamed of glory, of charging across the battlefield with the sun shining on bronze armor. But the old generals never cared about dreams, they cared about preparation. Because the truth of war is brutal and simple. Battles are not won in the moment of impact, they are won in the quiet days before the enemy arrives. In the repetitions no one witnesses, in the discipline no one celebrates. Most men today abandon their post the moment the work becomes dull. They mistake boredom for failure. They think progress must feel exciting. But iron does not sharpen through excitement. It sharpens through friction. So before we march deeper into this lesson, I want to hear from you. Report your position in the comments. Tell the Legion where you are watching from, your city, your country. Let the sentinels of discipline recognize one another in the dark, because tonight we speak about polished iron. I have seen walls thicker than mountains fall in a single night, not because the enemy was stronger, but because the sentinels grew careless. Troy did not collapse when the Greeks first arrived. For years our walls stood unbroken against their rage. Spears shattered against our shields, ladders burned beneath our towers, yet the stone held firm. But the true breach did not begin outside the walls. It began inside the minds of tired men. Discipline faded slowly, almost invisibly. The drills became shorter, the watch less vigilant. Warriors who once sharpened their blades before sunrise began to sleep while the morning fog rolled across the plains. They told themselves the same lie men tell today. Tomorrow I will train. Tomorrow I will wake earlier. Tomorrow I will begin the work that builds strength. That single word spreads like rot through a garrison. A city under siege cannot survive on tomorrow. While a man delays, the enemy prepares. Armies do not rest simply because a guard has grown comfortable. Time itself becomes the attacker. Every hour of neglect loosens another stone in the wall. Every missed discipline dulls the blade meant to defend it. Your enemies now rarely carry shields or spears. They arrive quietly, disguised as harmless comforts. A glowing screen that steals hours from your life. Endless distractions that scatter your focus. The soft voice of convenience whispering that the hard path can wait. None of these enemies feel dangerous in the moment. That is the deception. Real breaches never begin with explosions or flaming arrows. They begin with small neglects repeated day after day until weakness becomes the new habit. Every time you abandon the basic disciplines, another crack spreads through the fortress of your life. Training skipped, work delayed, promises broken to yourself. These seem like minor things, but the walls of character are built from these very stones. And when enough of those stones crumble, the gate no longer needs to be broken. One night, the enemy does not storm the city. He simply walks through the opening you left behind. After a breach appears, a city has only one choice: strengthen the walls, or prepare for ruin. In Troy, when weakness crept into the ranks, the old generals did not shout speeches about glory. They returned us to the drills, the same movements, the same discipline again and again. Many young warriors hated this. They wanted dramatic victories and heroic charges across the battlefield. But the veterans understood something carved into the bones of war. Battles are won by habits forged long before the first spear is thrown. So they forced us back into the grind. Shield up. Step forward. Hold the line. Hundreds of repetitions beneath the burning sun. Thousands beneath the cold grey sky. No applause. No recognition. Only the quiet sharpening of men. That is how iron becomes a weapon, not in a single strike against the stone, but through countless silent strokes. Each pass seems meaningless. Each movement feels small, yet together they transform dull metal into a blade that can split armor. Your war today is no different. Strength is not built in sudden bursts of motivation. Motivation burns fast and dies quickly, like straw thrown into a fire. Discipline is slower, colder, and far more powerful. The man who trains only when he feels inspired abandons his post the moment boredom arrives. But the warrior who repeats the basics every day becomes something dangerous. His body learns the work. His mind grows hard like tempered steel. Push-ups repeated for years, pages read in quiet mornings, skills practiced long after the excitement fades. These things seem small to the impatient mind, but time multiplies them like an army gathering beyond the horizon. One day the battle arrives, the lazy man panics, the disciplined man moves without hesitation, because his iron has already been polished. In the final nights before Troy fell, the city was strangely quiet. The fires burned low along the ramparts, and the wind carried ash across the silent streets. I remember standing guard beneath the cold stars, listening to the distant creak of armor and the restless breathing of tired soldiers. A sentinel learns something few men understand. The real battle is not always fought with spears in hand. Sometimes the greatest war is fought against sleep, comfort, and the quiet voice that whispers that vigilance is no longer necessary. Most men fail during those quiet hours. Not when the enemy charges the gate, but when nothing seems to be happening at all. That is when discipline feels pointless. That is when the mind begins to drift. But the sentinel who survives understands a brutal truth. The enemy is always patient. He waits beyond the darkness, watching the walls, measuring the silence, searching for the moment when attention fades and the watch grows careless. Life beyond these ruins works the same way. The battles that shape a man rarely arrive with warning. They appear suddenly, like fire in the night, demanding strength that must already exist within him. That strength is not created in the moment of crisis. It is built in the quiet years beforehand. In the early mornings, when no one is watching. In the long routines that feel invisible and dull to the impatient mind. The man who endures those silent years becomes something rare. His discipline becomes a wall no enemy can easily break. His habits stand like iron gates, unmoved by distraction, unmoved by fatigue. And when the dark finally stirs again, when life brings its inevitable battles to the gate, the sentinel does not panic. He simply lifts his spear, steadies his breath, and stands ready on the wall. Most men spend their lives waiting for the moment of glory. They imagine the battle will come with drums, banners, and a chance to prove themselves in a single heroic act. But war does not reward those who waited. It rewards the man who sharpened his blade in silence while others slept. The grind you repeat today is not meaningless. It is the forge where your future strength is hammered into shape, strike after strike, long before the enemy ever appears on the horizon. So close your gates, stand your watch, polish your iron every day. The siege never ends.